I always believe everybody is a product of their environment. Right? I've interviewed thousands of people. Maybe 3, 4, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say is everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants.
Bro, look at Nick's face. What? Does he always just have like a shit-eating grin on his face like that? I'm sorry, but like as an interviewer, if I were interviewing Nick Fuentes and he was constantly just looking at me like that, if we are in some type of debate, I think he would get under my skin. I am dead serious. I think him looking at me with that face, I genuinely believe that I would just be getting angry and I wouldn't be able to explain why. But yes, that goofy shit-ass eating grin on his face, bro. Sorry. Let's get back to this. I just like that is like a trolling, unintentional trolling smile. Maybe it is intentional. Like I said, I haven't really watched them that much, but wow. Okay, that was, sorry for getting off on a tangent there. But also, I'm drinking a coffee right now, and I made it with instant coffee. Actually, not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to taste putrid, but it's actually okay. I'll be real. It's not amazing, but not terrible. Okay, so if you're ever looking for a coffee that you want to make in like 30 seconds, instant coffee. Not too bad.
So before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will, and I'll defend them.
I'm not trying to ambush you. As I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush,
Nick,
but
to be clear,
I think everybody understands.
I'm not ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as, they were commonly known as black fare.
His face.
Whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it, and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist, and they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents. They used to have a school in Chicago in the South Loop where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school, and most of the clients were black. And I believe actually one of their clients was Larry Hoover's son at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the South side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so my family being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican, and the West Side on Taylor Street, all over the city. My family for many generations have lived near and around black people. And look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers.
All right, don't you dare call me racist for this, because that'll piss me off. And tell me if you disagree, but I see what Nick is saying here. And this is not just lumping black people together. But I'm telling you this. I have never met more respectful people, nicer, well-mannered people than older black people. When I meet a 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old black person, they are the nicest, kindest, most well-mannered people I have ever talked to in my life, men and women. Almost every single time I talk to, an older African American, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to become a better person because you are so kind, so nice, so respectful. But when I talk to a lot of younger black people, they're like, don't you dare hit me with, oh, you're just racist, you hate young black people. No, literally half of my friends are black and they are amazing people. But so many younger black people are so rude, so poorly mannered, so incredibly purposefully disrespectful. And I don't know why. Obviously there's a lot of white people that are like that too, but it just seems like there is a very high percentage of young black people that just live without consequence, that have no care for whoever's around them, that portray a very narcissistic attitude. And I would say that it's a higher percentage than typical young white people. And that's just the truth. That's just my personal opinion from my personal experiences. And that's not saying that all young black people are terrible, because like I said, literally about half of my friends are black and the majority of them are far better people than I am, far nicer people than I am. A lot of them are more intelligent, better mannered, everything. So it's not an attack on all of them. It's just an observation that it is crazy how respectful, kind, nice, and well-mannered older generations of black people are compared to the younger generations. Hate me as much as you want for saying that, but it's just what I have experienced in my own personal journey.
That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event and they light up the trees and there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year and you had a bunch of black people there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people that feel the same way about this. They say, we've lost control of the city and we're looking for accountability. We have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism, outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so, again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And I think anybody in Chicago will tell you the same.
I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
But it's not the same.
Well, actually, it's a big, diverse city. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that with you. I have got into that before in America.
You got a knife problem. You got sword problems.
We have problems with
Aladdin.
We have problems with violent crime. I make no pretense of it. So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it, but I guess my point about the environment, I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people are in some capacity. Mm-hmm. When I read that anecdote, it's just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story, right? And you said that
you said this. We're looping. You said this already.
But you haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
This is interesting because, look, I've watched some of Piers Morgan stuff before. I figured that he was going to press Fuentes a bit. I watched some of Tucker Carlson's interview with Nick Fuentes where he didn't press him at all. So I'm actually getting very excited here because it looks like Piers Morgan is going to press Nick Fuentes throughout this interview. And that excites me because when you press someone, you actually get to figure out who they are, what they stand for, what they don't stand for, where they're full of shit, where they're not full of shit. So I'm excited. Are you?
No, well, see here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, this stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
okay, so when you told the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly, on the face of it, is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying, well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat an Olive Garden because he said that's not real Italian food. Hang on, can I? What's with the interruptions? Can I explain?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. And these people come, well, you're a boomer, I guess, too, in a way,
60.
right? You were born in
60.
19? Yeah. So you're a boomer also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer. I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society, but you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist. And I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay.
And I'll say this too. You're lying. You are lying if you've never made a racist joke in your life. Just point blank. I'm going to be honest with you. Every single friend I have, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever, has made one racist joke, probably, without actual anger or animosity in their heart towards that race. But every single person has made a racist joke before. So I don't know the context of, I didn't watch the show where Nick was talking about his father. But if his father said something that could be considered racist, I don't really care, okay? I don't care even a little bit, because everyone has said something in a joking way about another race. Do you disagree with that? Because it's just the truth. And if you say, oh no, I never have, never ever ever, not in the privacy of my own home, not around my black friends, my Spanish friends, you're lying. Shut up. My black friends make jokes all the time about white people, about me. I make jokes about them. And they laugh. I laugh because we're friends. If there's no animosity, no real animosity in the joke, then just shut up, okay? We're humans. It's how humans connect, especially men, okay? We make fun of each other. I'm 5'10", 5'11". My 6'6" friends make fun of me all the time for being short, okay? My black friends make fun of me for being pale and getting burned, okay? I was with a bunch of people in Las Vegas literally 2 days ago, and one of my white friends made a joke of one of our black friends for not jumping in his pool, saying he couldn't swim. And who cares? Because we all love each other. We are all great friends, and there's no real animosity in it. So that's one thing I want to point out here. And like I said, I don't know if Nick has animosity in his heart towards other races, okay? I don't know. But always just taking jokes and saying, racist, now we must discredit everything he said. This kid must be a racist because his father made a joke about black people working at Olive Garden, Red Lobster, whatever he said. I don't know. I think that when we are addressing things that people have said in the past, you have to actually get to the bottom of it and say, is there animosity towards a race of people? Because that is incredibly telling, and that, shapes the entire meaning of what they are saying. There's some girl that has gone super viral for just like putting on blackface, within the past year or so. I forget her name because she's that insignificant. But I think that she genuinely she like puts on blackface and says like the N-word. She's gone viral for it several times. But I believe that she genuinely has animosity in her heart towards black people. And I think she is a gross person. That is gross. That is despicable behavior. I haven't watched enough of Nick yet to really figure out what's in his heart. Or obviously I'm not going to know what's in his father's heart. I just think that's something that we, as Americans who live in a very obviously a multicultural country, need to be aware of, because you shouldn't just hate someone. And let's take Nick out of the conversation right now, okay? You shouldn't hate a white person. If you're black, you shouldn't hate a white person because they made some type of black joke, okay? If you're white, you shouldn't hate some type of any color person. You shouldn't. Okay, for example, I saw an Asian person call a white person dumb because they couldn't solve some like crazy math equation, which I couldn't solve at all either. So it was like, it was a pretty intense math equation. And the white person got offended. You just think all white people are stupid because, look, we got to stop being so offended by jokes when race is a part of the joke, okay? Get over it. Get over it. Unless there is real animosity in your heart within that joke that you were telling, then whatever. Grow up, okay? We all used to make jokes about this stuff 20 years ago, and no one cared. 15 years ago, we were all making jokes about this all the time. okay? Shut up. Grow up. Get over it. Don't base your entire narrative around this concept of America is so racist because of freaking jokes. I know this has been a bit of a tangent, but I just want us to start thinking about that differently. Instead of looking for racism everywhere, instead of trying to find racism in every single thing that every single person says, how about you just don't? How about you just don't? Because the vast majority of the time, there is no hatred in those words. There is no real racism involved. And like I said, I'm taking Nick out of this because I don't know him well enough to make a judgment call on whether he's a racist or not, okay? But we as Americans need to stop trying so desperately to find racism in every single little thing that every single person says, every single second of every single day. Get over it.
They can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about that story is that it was a joke, okay? I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's just take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
I've seen that clip before.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Clearly, I do not know Nick Fuentes well enough because I thought he was going to backtrack. I thought he was going to, move around what he just said. I thought he was just going to try to explain what he actually meant. His brother just said, that is all completely true. Look, you guys, I'm learning here. I am figuring out who this guy is. If you've seen him before, is that how he always is? I'm speechless. I really am. Wow.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Oh my God.
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that 5%.
Is that a real statistic? 1 in 20? That is wild if that is true. I'm gonna have to fact check that one later.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's the
you just
crime
said
problem.
blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify. You were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
Do you think it's funny or?
I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black.
Is that true? If you're black and you watch Nick Fuentes and you're a fan of him, will you let me know in the comments? Like, I am genuinely so curious. Do black people like Nick Fuentes? Like, is it the majority of black people that watch him actually like him? Or is there like a select few that really like him? And are there more that hate him more than like him? If you're black, please let me know your opinion on Nick Fuentes in the comments because I am genuinely curious.
People are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son went to Chicago
Inglewood.
University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west. See what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was just
around.
Remind me again, the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
So your rate means that you're saying that.
All right, pause this for a second. Let's look this up ourselves. Let's see what the real numbers are. And I'm going to Google this really fast. Percentage of black men in America will commit a murder. My God, this isn't telling me shit. What percentage of black men commit a murder in the US. Okay, I am seeing so many different numbers, so many different statistics, so many posts from the NAACP talking about how victimized black people are. Yeah, this is ridiculous. I'm not getting anything, and I'm not going to actually go look through the entire FBI's website and search through all their tables and put together a whole bunch of numbers here. Nope, not doing this, and my Wi-Fi's acting up, so sorry. We can look it up after.
5 times as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say.
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100? Or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20.
I would find that to be incredibly shocking if 1 in 20 black men in the United States are expected to commit murder or do commit murder. I would be very surprised if that's accurate. 1 in 100 probably sounds much more likely. So I'm going to assume it's closer to that. I wish I could find some actual real reporting to back that up really fast, to say which one is true or not. But to be honest with you, you're probably on your computer or on your phone right now, and you can look it up yourself. And we're just going to move on because I don't want to take too long going over that.
I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
Sure,
this is
a lot of
real
white
problem.
people commit murder too. They do, don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population. Blacks are 13%. And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people. And people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most mass
what's with the
shootings-
interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified.
Also, I'm seeing something right now, when I was trying to figure out this, who is correct here. One of these reports is saying that black people account for 60% of those killed by firearm homicide each year. On average, black people are over 11.5 times more likely to be victims of firearm violence than white people. That's crazy. It's sad. And that is something that obviously needs to be addressed. And I don't think it needs to just be, a lot of the times when we look at these numbers and we say, oh, it's because they are impoverished, because they had it so bad from the white man for so long that now that this is what they must resort to. Okay, not actually completely true. It has more to do with cultural issues because there are a ton of impoverished white people. I'm from Kentucky, from Louisville, Kentucky, but I've been all around Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky. Oh my gosh, they live in abject poverty, but they're not over there shooting each other as much as black people in, downtown are. Louisville's a dangerous city. I've seen so many people, I don't know what I'm allowed to say here on YouTube. I've seen so many people come face to face with guns, okay? So there is a real issue. And it's something that we need to work on to help black people out in America, but it also has a lot to do with culture. Let's be real. And by us being scared of saying that out loud, scared of confronting that fact, we are just making it harder on black people to get out of the terrible situation that they're in.
People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the blue line, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry.
Oh my God.
It's racial for me. And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
I mean,
look at his face, this smirk that I'm talking about. Oh my God, that would piss me off so much if I were interviewing him. I mean, look, my impression of Nick Fuentes right now, that's a messed up thing to say. I'm just being real. Like, I mean, when I have children and they bring home a black person that they're dating, I'm judging that person based on their character, okay? Point blank. That's it. And so I don't necessarily understand or agree with him saying that he doesn't want their kid bringing home a black person. I mean, look, let me be real with you. It's kind of a racist thing to say, okay? It is, point blank. It is. Now, do I think that he is a racist person for saying that? We might be getting there, okay? I'm just being real. But look, I don't relate. I don't understand. I know a lot of black people that are far better people than a lot of white people I know. So why judge someone based solely on their skin? It makes no sense to me.
couldn't be clearer, really. unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their death.
You know, I think that, you know, there's you can't deny that we are a tribalistic species. Everyone, every single human, no matter who you are, has a sense of tribalism. And a lot of that tribalism derives from pure aesthetics, white, black, Asian, Spanish, whatever. So when he says everyone's a bit racist, yeah, that's true. And if you claim that you're not, then you are lying, because, you know, it is something that you overcome and whatnot. But everyone is born with this innate sense of tribalism, and you cannot deny that. So if you do deny that, you are denying reality. But that innate sense of tribalism that we all feel doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have this disdain for your children marrying someone outside of your direct race. Okay? So you can have that sense of tribalism, but then not, you know, give in wholeheartedly to it. And by the way, the sense of, because I posted about this on a short form video, like a 55-second video when I first blew up on YouTube. And I mentioned that the sense of tribalism we have derives from just our ability or our desire to survive. Okay? It's part of the reason humans were able to survive back in the day. So there's nothing wrong with that sense of tribalism that you feel. There's no need to deny it. Okay? Just wanted to clear that up for you.
Detriment. Everybody else is racist.
But earlier in the interview, you really got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically
because
sure
my father's...
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to the everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody... The difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all
Well, then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out there.
You know what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't really like it how he keeps on bringing up his father. I just think it's hard to have conversations like this when your father is being directly involved in the conversation in a negative light. Yeah, I don't really like that.
You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who worked at these places.
You know, even if Nick Fuentes did say that about his father on his show, personally, look, I would never want to put that kind of stuff out about any type of family member. But even if he did put it out on a show, I think it's fair for Piers Morgan to maybe bring it up like he did the first time to say, like, hey, look, do you think this had a real effect on how you turned out? Was your dad actually a raging racist that passed that way of thinking onto you? And then if Nick says no, he wasn't, move on. Okay, stop bringing up his father. I think that would have been fair.
You say or use them. If you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist, you're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low. And I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views. And I think that, you know, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father, because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well, then do you accept that you shouldn't talk?
I'll defend the anecdote.
Listen, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show? And you shouldn't tell...
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're being malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. they can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just
And they
did.
will.
Yeah, and I'm
they
sure
will.
afterwards, by the way, you'll say, he ambushed me with your own with your own words.
Whoa.
With your own words.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing, and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that. I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism,
I do.
Let's talk about racism.
Okay,
Let's leave my dad out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Wait, what? He's admitted that he's a racist? Yo, this guy is this gentleman is a character, to say the least. He every single thing he says kind of shocks me, surprises me, takes me off guard. It's interesting. This is definitely an interesting watch.
Okay, that's fine. You're perfectly entitled in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist.
The look on his face still. Yo, I can't get over this.
People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're a racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point of this interview, is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it. So I want to play you another clip. This is what you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
You stand by that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Look, that's a bit of a stretch. That's a wild thing to say, okay? And look, I'm assuming I know where he's going here. He's gonna say, there's a higher probability of a black person doing something violent than a white person. Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and say that's not true, because I think statistically speaking, actually, I know that that's more true. Okay, but I mean, just to generalize all black people like that, I don't know. I think that you're at that point, you are spreading this mindset that is unnecessary, that is uncalled for, that might be just a little too far. Now, if you want to call out the issues within the black community, the overarching generalized issues that we all see that, a lot of people just won't talk about, I like that. I love that, actually. And I think that you need to draw attention to the fact that black people are more likely to do this, that. But just saying that white people are in the right to just avoid black people, I mean, come on, man. I think that at that point, you're spreading this mindset towards black people that is uncalled for, that won't lead to any type of positive movement within the black community. If anything, you're just creating a larger division between, white and black people, which is the opposite of what we need here in the United States. We need to close that division. We need to address the issues within the black community, and we need to move forward as Americans. That's what we need to do. And I just don't think that type of rhetoric necessarily helps us do that.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people are violent, or the reason there's crime, is because of police brutality, redlining, or all these other things. They said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now, whether you're in the Gold Coast or whether you're on the Mag Mile or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, Black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew, and they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. You know, they grin, they laugh, they put up with the
Okay, look, this is what I'm going to say. I see what he's saying. I do. But and this is one thing that I have seen with Nick Fuentes through his clips that I don't necessarily agree with, is how he generalizes based on race very often. So, for example, you know, are Black people more likely to commit a crime? Okay, sure. But I would venture, what I would say is this. You're not afraid. Okay, no, let me take this back. Stereotyping is fine. Genuinely, I am okay with stereotyping. Look, when I was in high school, I had lip rings, I had a giant nose ring, I had gauges in my ear, I had hair down to my shoulder, I wore, you know, I was sagging so far that the only thing holding up my pants was my... So like, look, I looked like a punk, and guess what? I was a punk. I fought everyone. I was involved in so many terrible things I should not have been involved with. So if you saw me walking down the sidewalk and you moved to the other sidewalk, the other side of the street, I would get it. All my friends looked like me. My friends all, you know, when we were 15 years old, all my friends had face tats. It's just the truth. And the truth is that the way we looked like punks is the way we acted. We were involved in terrible things, ridiculous things, dangerous things, violent things. So my issue with what Nick Fuentes is saying right now is that he's just saying, look, you see any Black person, just move to the other side of the street. It's fine. Who cares? But where I would disagree, where I would push back, is that, look, what if you see a Black person walking down who looks fine, looks normal? And maybe this is the point he's getting to with the friendly Blacks thing, but you saw a white person walking down the street that looked like a thug, face tats, buzzed head, sagging, talking like a thug, acting like a thug, walking like a thug. You should have the same mindset there as if you saw a Black person walking like a thug, acting like a thug, looking like a thug, right? So it doesn't have to do necessarily with just being Black. Stereotyping is fine, but don't stereotype just simply on your skin color, because that's crazy. Like I said, the vast majority of Black people I know are amazing people. Amazing people. I also know a lot of Black people that were terrible people, that are terrible people. I know a lot of white people that are terrible people. So stereotyping is fine, but stereotyping simply on the color of your skin, I don't know how I feel about that. No, I do know how I feel about that. I don't like that. Okay, I don't like that. Not even a little bit. And this is like something that Nick Fuentes says all the time with Jews too. You know, Jews are selfish, and look, I'm just basing this off of the clips that I've seen. But he seems to just say Jews are the issue. Jews are the selfish people that are manipulating our entire country, our entire economy. They are the selfish people that control the money with their world. And look, there's a lot of successful Jews that are definitely a part of that. But then there's also successful, selfish non-Jews that are part of that too. So I think that just stereotyping based on race is a flaw in the whole Nick Fuentes brand with this whole image. So while I agree with some of the stuff he's saying here, I don't agree with the way that he presents it, with the way that he packages it.
Nonsense, and then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so as a white person...
How do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's white people.
Oh, I hate when people bring this up. I just think it detracts from the conversation of, oh, okay. Look, a lot of gun violence here in the United States. A lot of it. A lot of it is from Black people. So whenever people bring this up and say that, look, we need to address this issue within the Black community, they're like, well, did you know that white people are most likely to commit school shootings? It's like, okay, great. But school shootings don't make up the majority of gun deaths in America. So shut up, okay? Yeah, do we need to address the whole school shooting thing? Absolutely. Yeah, sure. But that's a completely separate conversation, completely different issue than the vast majority of shootings we see every single day here in America. I'm tired of this argument.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think Black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime, and it's a different proportion also.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. There's far more, proportionally speaking, there's far more gun deaths for gang-related violence, just like random gun violence that you see not connected with school shootings.
Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And I'm
what proportion?
I'm curious.
What proportion?
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in these. Should they
what proportion?
Should they avoid Should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or are involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are.
Bro, I love his Christmas setup. Like, it really is putting me in the spirit. I'm so excited for Christmas now. Like, I just keep on getting distracted. Look at how beautiful that is. I'm not talking about Nick's face, okay? Chill. Look how beautiful that background is. Look at that tree. Look at those stockings, man. Look at all the gifts wrapped up, man. You know what I'm going to do after I finish making this video? I am going to go watch my favorite Christmas movie. I am going to go watch Elf. Yeah, that's my favorite Christmas movie. And then I'll save my second favorite Christmas movie, The Grinch, for another time. Elf is the best. The Elf movie. Oh my God, it's not called The Elf. Elf is the best Christmas movie out there. Argue with me if you want, but I'm never changing my mind.
School shooters compared to the entire white population, and everybody understands that.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's the question.
I've just told you. It's 60-65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb or are you just not that smart?
What difference does that make to the children lying dead on the ground?
Dude, he is such a like a professional rage baiting troll. Like, in a way where I see why he's so popular. He is, look at his face. Look at his face right now. He is a professional, highly intelligent, rage-baiting troll who makes a lot of good points, but at the same time, this is why he's so popular. Well, and also the whole anti-Israel stance is an incredibly popular stance to have now, but the type of presenting that he does, the way he conveys his messages, where it's wrapped in this like comedy sketch almost, I understand why so many people watch him. He's a highly entertaining person. I cannot deny that.
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference. The difference is in terms
what I'm saying to you is by your logic, if we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing?
Bro, just say it. Just say it, Nick. Just say you're talking about how there's a higher percentage of black people that commit crimes and compared to the percentage of white people that commit violent crimes. It's that simple. I don't know what Piers Morgan is getting to here. I've seen him debate a lot of people, and this is kind of a weird point that he's trying to make. It's not really working for him.
Dumb, or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because you're, well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably like 5%. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools, why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be, you know, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangbangers in and around the school and all the other violence that's associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, you know, it's just not livable.
Yeah, that's facts. Like, look, in my high school, obviously there was violence in the school, you know, multiple fights per day. A lot of people brought in weapons, brass knuckles, knives, guns into class, whatnot. And there was a lot of like, you know, neighborhood, gang related issues, conflicts, right? Oh, you're from this part of town. You're from this part of town. We have an issue. Oh, you're white. You're black. You're in this crew. You're in this crew. We have a problem. Oh, you're selling drugs to this gang and you screw them over. We have a problem. And a lot of that spilled over to after school. You know, we had designated parking lots basically that were around our school district where people would meet up basically every single night and just brawl, full on fights. People get stabbed, people get shot all the time. So, you know, Nick's not wrong on this point at all. Not wrong at all.
Nick, so the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same for black and white.
For white people, the proportion of
the proportion
again,
of the population.
are you hearing it? No.
So I think the trouble with your statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time. because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney. And when you say,
okay,
well, it's true. And when you're confronted
What-
with
but you're-
when you're
wait,
confronted
what's
with
the
reality,
figure?
you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No,
What's
no.
the number?
Tell me the number, and then
the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people. You want to avoid.
Yo, come on out. Piers Morgan is smarter than this. I don't really understand what he's trying to do right here. He's not making sense. Like, Nick is right. Give him a number. This argument doesn't make sense. And I know Piers is a highly intelligent individual. I just don't understand what he's trying to do here.
Black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them, you don't care. You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise your mind. Maybe because you don't.
No one's
maybe
buying
you don't
this.
have
This
kids.
argument lost. No one is buying this. Everybody understands per capita, and people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no. Compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue.
I'm assuming that what Piers is trying to say is that the same amount of, or if you say you have 100 school shootings per year in America, right? I'm assuming what Piers is trying to say here is that 50 of them were committed by white people and 50 of them were committed by black people. So it's the same. But obviously what Nick is trying to say here is, okay, great, but white people far outnumber black people in America. So the proportion is different. And I don't know what's happening here, why Piers is just ignoring that. They're talking past each other. It's like Piers isn't necessarily comprehending what Nick is saying, what Nick's argument is. So look, that's what it is, okay? What I just said is why you're just like, why we're engulfed in this confusion on screen right now. Because I believe Piers is confused as to the point Nick is making, or he's acting like he's not understanding the point because there's not really a comeback to it.
That you're very likely, if you encounter black people or a young black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference, and it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment. People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment and we see what it's like. And the threat, the danger in terms of probability is it's not even comparable. And I would say this to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. In Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in this city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black on white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago, right? I mean, it's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process where I have to avoid all black people in case they shoot me. And you've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living anywhere near black people, they already have heard you say, I'm a racist. So they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color. I don't think you would probably dispute that, right?
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue, when I said I don't want to live around black people, that was after Irina Zarutska got shot. And it's true. I mean, they are largely in this city in Chicago, the South Side, the West Side, huge criminal population, and I don't want to live anywhere near it. And I do. I want to live in a white neighborhood. I think that that's extremely desirable, and I think even
Nick,
black people do.
Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying, I am a racist, unashamedly, then people will assume that all your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin color, which is the purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board. I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. You know, I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews,
but you're the
Trump
product
people,
of an
Hispanics.
interracial marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable.
Not
Let's
really.
say for the sake of
Not
argument,
really.
sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is part Mexican. You're literally,
For the sake of argument,
listen, you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic, of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous
It's
Americans
not
and
white, though,
Europeans.
is it? It's not white.
Well, you're apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
Not
a
really.
one-drop
You just
rule
keep
thing
saying you
going.
only want to
Kind
live in a
of.
white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally
and I
got
live in
Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here though, but I'm trying to get out. But
This whole thing from Nick kind of confused me. Not completely sure. Look, his last name is Fuentes, right? He's not 100% white. I'm assuming based on his last name, based on his look, you can kind of tell he's got some type of ethnic blood in him, some type of mixed race in him. And I am having trouble following his logic as to why he supports seemingly white nationalism, why he thinks white people are above all others, I'm guessing. I don't know. He hasn't fully, talked about like Asians or anything yet, but I don't know. It seems a little weird to me how he is trying to almost distance himself from his last name. I don't know. Maybe someone that watches him more can elaborate a little bit on this for me. Fill in some of the blank spaces because I'm having trouble following him here.
here's the thing.
Do you have any non-white? Do you have any non-white friends? Genuine question.
Most of my friends are non-white. Most of my friends are not, and non-white people love my show because they respect
black?
the honesty.
How many of your friends are black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Ye being one who you know, Sneeko being another who you also know.
Yeah. So how do they feel when you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said.
Oh boy, I don't know what he's about to quote from Ye, but it's gonna be something. It's gonna be a quote. It's gonna be something worth. Look, let's just put it this way. It's not gonna be something that I think I'm gonna want on my YouTube channel, but let's see what he's got to say here.
He said, so you use the N-word. I said, yeah. He goes, well, when niggas are being niggas. I said, so true. That's so true. They feel like they're in complete agreement with me.
What does that mean?
It means that even black people know how black people can behave.
You know what that means. Come on now. Even as a 60-year-old that lives in London, you got to know what that means, okay? He's saying when black people are being the stereotypical bad version of what you sometimes see within the black community, then you're in the right, I guess, to try to ignore them or avoid them. Clearly, that's what he means.
Even black people understand it. And they know that it doesn't come from a place of, and you use the word aversion. That's the first thing I'll actually dispute.
Okay.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry. I don't consider myself a bigot. I consider myself a racial realist. I'm realistic about how the races are, and I speak provocatively about it. And I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as human beings. And
hey, look, he brought up the tribalistic instincts and tendencies that we have as human beings, like I was talking about earlier.
I'm not a liberal ideologue that says that over time and with enough education, we're all going to see this great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real. It's not just skin deep. It matters to us and it matters to each other. And black people know that, and Hispanics know that, and Asians know that, and people like me that have partial Mexican ancestry, we know that too. And I think on that basis, we can have mutual respect and understanding, not aversion based on skin color.
The reason I use the word aversion is you literally said that you should walk the other way if you see black people. That is an aversion. to black people based on their skin color.
No, that's called economy of information. That's economy of information. That's safety. And I said in the same monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like Irina Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man with her headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this. I'm progressive. Then she got stabbed in the neck. And I said, it's unfortunate that you would have to sit behind the black man to be safe. And if he's not violent or schizophrenic, he might be offended by that. I said, but I would rather offend him than die.
How many deranged?
I just got a notification on my phone saying that Texas Democrat Rep Jasmine Crockett is running for Senate. That is, bro, she is so dumb. If she wins a Senate seat, I'm giving up. I'm deleting my channel. I am getting out of politics. I am throwing in the towel. I am giving up because she is freaking retarded. She's dumber than I am. And if she runs and wins a Senate seat, throw in the towel with me. We're done. We're cooked. America's over. Good job. We had a nice, solid 200+ year run. Yeah, we're done. I'm just being honest. The American experiment has failed if Jasmine Crockett wins a Senate seat.
White men have committed atrocious acts of murder in the last 10 years in America.
Proportionally far fewer.
But how many?
Fewer.
How many? Do you know how many?
You have a research team. You pull it up.
I mean, you're very big
on.
You're obviously extremely exercised by that one story, which was horrific for the record, absolutely horrific, and should never have happened. The person who perpetrated that evil act had a string of previous offences and should have been picked up more, and it should have been amplified more. I completely concur with all of that. But I just suspect you have no idea how many white people have committed similar crimes, do you?
No, because I know it's far fewer from experience.
Okay.
Because it's like you said. Well, and hang on. And I would add to that, Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf was killed in Texas.
Sure.
After
But
Carmelo
how many
Anthony
times has it
stabbed
been
him in the neck.
perpetrated by white people?
Well, hang on. Let me finish my point.
But you're
and then
implying
not
that
only
white
did-
people don't do this. And my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is of course,
Oh, I never said white people don't do it.
Of course, deranged white people commit heinous acts. But you don't either know.
No disagreement.
You neither know nor care, or maybe both. Maybe you do know but don't care. You only seem to be focused on black people who commit crimes. And again, if you hadn't prefaced the whole debate about racism by openly conceding you are a racist, I could read other connotations into what you've been saying. But once you've said, I'm a racist, and then you only talk about black crime, I think people can watch this and they can say, yeah, he is. He's a racist. And everything that he says about crime is driven through the prism of being a racist who judges people according to their skin color.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this in a similar...
So one point that Piers is making here that I do agree with, and I appreciate him calling out, is that, look, even if Nick does make a great point, a point that more people need to be discussing, like, for example, the high violent crime rate within black communities, right? If Nick brings attention to that, rightfully brings attention to that, a lot of people can just dismiss it because they say he's a racist. He sees everything through this racial lens. He sees black people he assumes bad. So they neglect to actually look into what he's saying, to listen to what he's saying. They just completely disregard everything he says because they believe that he's just an outright gross racist. So I truly believe that, Nick makes some good points. He does. I don't agree with everything he says. Definitely not. But he makes points. Good points. And some of those good points need to be digested and actually thought through by the rest of the country. Because if we do that, then we can actually make positive change. We can move forward in a positive way, in the right direction. But a lot of people are going to completely disregard everything he says, even when he's making a good point, because they're saying you're a racist. And so I don't necessarily like it how Nick is saying that, how he just embraces the idea of being called a racist. How he says, yeah, I'm a racist. Look, it's funny, it gets clicks, sure, but like at the same time, I think you could make a bigger impact, a more positive impact. Okay, let's not say a bigger impact. Let's say a more positive impact. If he said, no, look, I'm not a racist. I'm not. And maybe, look, like I said, if you watch him, maybe he does say that more often in his live stream. I don't know. But what I'm seeing right now is that he embraces the label of racist. But then he makes good points. He makes solid criticisms of the black community. But those criticisms are going to be disregarded by not only liberals, but also people within the black community because they're saying, screw this racist. Why am I going to listen to anything that he has to say? Even if, he's making a good point to me, they're going to say he's not making a good point because it's all based in this gross little cesspool of racism. So that is one thing that I do agree with Piers Morgan on here.
Monologue. The problem is not that I wake up and I walk down the street and I see someone that doesn't look like me and it makes me angry. The problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America have become narcissistic, and they become narcissistic because they've been told they're victims of racism, they're victims of slavery. They've been told, really, there's no accountability. If they're rude, if they're inconsiderate, if they're criminal, they are told that they have no agency for their actions. They're being told, if you act in this way, it's because the white man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you. And so we have been telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too. What we hate to see is rudeness, obnoxiousness, inconsideration, criminality, violence. And that's that pattern of behavior that we see all over social media, on the body cam footage, on cops.
You don't like black people who play the victim and are rude. Is that your position?
I don't like that pattern of behavior.
And who are narcissists.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, you're ahead of me.
Turn this around on me.
You're ahead of me, aren't you? Because when I said, what black friends have you got? You said,
I am kind of black, aren't I?
No, not that. You said, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying your choice of black friend is Ye, who is arguably the #1 black victimhood narcissist in America. Do you understand the problem?
Yeah, Ye might be a bit of a narcissist, but I don't think he plays the victim card.
So he's your friend. He's one of the very few black people you want to be associated with, but he's the epitome of what you just said you abhor about narcissistic black people.
I disagree. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because Ye, if you've ever met him,
I think that was an interesting pushback by Piers, though. Kind of fascinating to think about. Just the fact that Nick doesn't necessarily, let's say, like the... Actually, let's just see what he has to say here, because I don't know Ye. So I don't know his actual personality. I just see what's been put out by the tabloids, by Hollywood News, E! News, whatever the hell. So let's let Nick actually talk about Ye. I don't want to actually like describe how Ye is in person, since I've never met him.
Him in real life.
I have, yeah.
Okay, well, then he's nothing but polite, considerate.
Actually, he was very rude to me the last 2 times I interviewed him. He's a supreme narcissist, and he's also...
Well, you keep interrupting me. You're very rude. Are you black?
I apologize.
You're being very rude.
What did he just say? Did he just say, you keep interrupting me, you're rude, are you black? Bro, Nick is a wild card. This man is something else. He is one of a kind.
By interrupting me right now.
To you.
I'm giving you a hard time, but I do want to finish my point. I do want to finish my point about Ye. He is a guy who, when I was with him, wanted to make sure that everybody was heard, everybody felt included. He's actually a very soft-spoken guy, very polite, and by the way, not violent. When you look at all the rappers that are in the music game, many of them, especially from Chicago, drill rap, they're talking about killing people, shooting people, they gangbang. He notably, if you know about him, he got his start because he was a nerd. He wore a backpack and a polo, and he wasn't a gangbanger. He rapped about his feelings and girls and his dreams and his ambitions. So no, and by the way, he would tell me all the time, he doesn't even feel black. They make him feel not black because he doesn't do those things, because he's soft-spoken, because he's artistic, because he's a bit of a nerd or likes fashion. So I would disagree. He's actually not like that at all.
Okay.
We're talking
He's also a Hitler-loving anti-Semite. And we're going to take a little commercial break here, and we're going to come back and talk about anti-Semitism.
Did Nick just say that's why I like him? Bro, I'll tell you, so every single time that, I think that Nick is going to say or do something to, let's say, change the narrative, the messaging, whatever Piers is saying, he just doubles down. It's kind of crazy, kind of impressive, kind of scary. Yeah, whatever. But looks like they're about to go to commercial. I got to use the restroom. I'll be right back.